Hey everyone, thank you so much for coming to another great interview of our 2023 Business Connection Summit. Today we are talking to Ben Gioia, and we are going to be breaking down a revolutionary idea, that at least revolutionary to me, going from podcast and turning it into a book, and what that means and how we could put things together. So without further ado, Ben, please tell us who you are, what you do, and a little bit about what we're going to talk about.
Thank you so much, Bill. I appreciate that. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here in the mix. So my name is Ben Gioia. I'm a four-time author, three-time best-selling so far. The fourth book is coming in September. And we actually wrote a book called The Influencer's Formula, Donna Kundi and myself, that talks about, among other things, turning a podcast into a book, right? And, my background is in this, or the context in this is I help folks write books in record time, high quality books that they're proud of and that position them as an expert, help them tell their story, share their message, and most importantly, says me, to get clients and create impact even before the book is published or even finished, because it's like, why wait for the book to make things happen in your business and in your life? And that's how I found my way to Donna. There are many stories behind that. And then I found my way, Bill, to you, and it's an honor and a pleasure, like I said, to be here.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So let's dive right into it. I know one of the concepts that we're talking about, and we'll touch on some others. Um, you know, the one that I was introduced to was, taking a podcast and turning it into a book. And I'm sure it ties into your whole writing it faster, getting it together, and trying to build that book. So I want you to tell me a little bit about that idea and other concepts like that to put your books together to kind of introduce what we're talking about.
Yeah, thank you. So I think one of the most important things to remember in all of this, whether it's podcast, book, TV talk show, a course, a training, pretty much anything that you're creating, there's a couple of things that are really, really important to remember because, so many people go off, half-cocked as they say, like, I'm going to write a book, I'm going to do a podcast, and they don't do the important foundational things like understand who your audience is, or affirm and clarify who your audience is, and then actually talk to them about the thing that you're creating, right? Like, don't write the book without talking to your ideal clients, right? Don't create a podcast without talking to your ideal clients. Don't create a business without talking to your potential ideal clients, right? Because they're going to tell you their challenges and goals and dreams and fears and all that kind of stuff. Of course, if you ask them and you listen, right, and you capture their words. So absolutely start there. If, excuse me, if your internet goes down right now, remember that, right? If you never see this interview again, like, that's how important that is. And, myself with books, colleague Donna, who I mentioned, who co-wrote the book with me for podcasts, right? Like, that's how we start everybody off, right? First and foremost, right? And then, as we're making sure that people are dialed into their business, we're hammering into them gently and lovingly, right? Just the idea of leverage, right? That if you've written a book and dialed it into your business, you've done like 80% of a podcast. Conversely, if you've done a book, pardon me, if you've done a podcast and have dialed into your business appropriately, you've done like 80% of the book. And what's the common denominator here? Talk to your ideal client about the thing you're creating before you do anything else. Gosh darn it.
Absolutely. And the better we understand our clients is always important,
Yeah.
with anything that we do. So now that we understand who we're trying to hit and what kind of things we should be talking about, what are some of these ways that we start putting this stuff together?
Yeah, so a good roadmap is really helpful. So I have a blueprint for my book writers. Donna has a roadmap for her podcasters. Whatever name you give it, a framework, if you like that. Have something where you know where the information goes, right? This kind of sounds basic, right? But don't crowd your mind and your psyche with the logistics of mapping out a book or the logistics of mapping out a podcast, right? um, Follow a proven system that you know where to put the things in the right place. That's so important because so many people get bogged down and like, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to create a thing, right? And believe me, I'm one of the most artistic people out there. And for stuff like this, the structure will save your life and your sanity and help you serve your people so much better.
Absolutely. And as a business coach, I am very much aware of how a plan can really help put things together. So having that roadmap is definitely very integral.
Yeah.
Um, okay. So the next step after we have the roadmap together, we have the picture of where we're going, we have a basic outline. What are some of the ways that we can start putting this content more in depth and starting to kind of construct what that book might look like?
Yeah. So, it depends. I invite people to keep it as simple as possible, right? So, how do you take people through your process, right? Like, what are the X amount of steps or components or whatever pillars to do that? Let that at least inform, if that's not the full trajectory, let it at least inform, your book. Because if you can not only give people valuable information through what you're teaching, but also give them an understanding of the steps that you take them through to help them overcome the challenges and achieve the goals they want to achieve with you, right? If you give them a kind of a taste of that in your book or in your podcast, right, they know what to expect. They know what it's like. They know how it's going to start. So, when you get down and get to it, they're already oriented to you and how you work and trusting of you and your process, which is absolutely golden because if they don't trust you, even if they don't realize it, they're not going to get the same level of benefits that they would if they did indeed trust you deeply.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
that touches on one of the key things that I believe books bring, which is credibility and the ability to show that you know more about a particular topic,
Mhm.
ultimately one that you probably have a service around. But it adds to that credibility and it rings a little different too, I think, when you say that you've published a book than
Totally.
if someone said they put out a podcast or they put out a movie. And I feel like it adds more to the educational and the sophisticated, for lack of a better word, side of things.
Yeah, yeah, and Bill, I really appreciate you saying that. And for all you podcasters out there, you're not unsophisticated. We're not saying that, right? But there is something about a book. There's something, legendary and mythological. Like books have been around, for a long freaking time. Podcasts are amazing. Movies are amazing, right? I'd love to make a movie someday. And there's that kind of ambiance and that mystery of, oh my God, you wrote a book, you must know something, right? I mean, there's a funny,
Absolutely.
yeah, there's such a funny story. I don't know, Bill, if you know this one of, a woman who wrote a book called, The Complete Guide that everything to, everything that men know about women,
Hmm.
right? And it was completely blank. And she made like $1 million or sold 1 million copies or something crazy like that, right? And I'm not saying and I'm not advising to write a blank book, right? What I am saying is that there is just power in, oh, I wrote a book, oh, I'm writing a book. Like this is what I tell my authors, and here's an insider secret, right? As soon as you are thinking about writing a book, start talking about yourself as the forthcoming author of that book,
Yeah,
right? Seriously, even if you don't know the title, just about the topic, start leveraging that, reality that is taking shape.
absolutely. And I think
Yeah.
that that rings true on a couple different levels.
Yep.
I think that business owners need to be able to talk things into existence, and talk things into existence is from the fact that by telling people you're going to do it, you're going to start actually pursuing it and have accountability to get it done. So um, that that mentality is definitely there, and I think that with books also it brings us back to the early like scholars and scrolls from like Babylon. Like it was all written down, and I think that
Totally.
that's part of where that credibility comes from, because
Yep.
technology and digital is still relatively new, even though it's been around for 40, 50 years or whatever. But whenever Microsoft put that first computer down.
Totally.
But I think that it definitely brings a level of things, but it can be leveraged in so many ways. And that's kind of the next thing I want to get into.
Mhm.
Books still have power when it
Mhm.
comes to leveraging them to do business, to create business, and to further ourselves. So give us some ideas on things that we can achieve with a book.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to start with a with an image. If you've ever been to a wedding or seen on video, the champagne glass pyramid,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah,
And how do they pour the champagne, Bill?
they start at the top.
They start at the top, exactly. Thank you very much. I'll give you $20 later. Um, no, and the that top champagne glass, the way I teach my authors is that's your book, right? Your wisdom, your expertise, all that stuff is the champagne or the sparkling cider, if you prefer, going into that top glass, filling all the other things,
Hmm.
right? So a book becomes a podcast, becomes and this isn't necessarily in sequential order. I'm just going to talk about all the things, right? But book, podcast, right? Years worth of blogs,
Hmm.
right? 4 day training, 3 day training, 2 day training, 1 day training, 2 hour training, blog post,
Yeah.
all the tweets you can possibly imagine,
Yes.
right? A custom book for a company that you're working for,
Hmm.
right? How cool would the company think if you're like, I'm gonna, make a custom book for your employees of the thing we're doing? They'd be like, oh, you're really cool,
Yeah.
right? um, all sorts of variations on training, digital products. You can use your book to give to a company or give to, an individual who you're helping to get them started on the process that you're teaching, right? So maybe there's some foundational things that you don't want to teach for the 96,000th time,
Hmm.
right? You give them the book or read a section of the book or, refer back to the book, right? That kind of thing. I mean, it's almost limitless because all of the text in the book can be turned into video and audio, right? Into a TV
Hmm.
talk show, into a global radio show, not just a podcast,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's just on and on and on. And so many of those things will go back to the L word, right? So many of the things come back to leverage.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think that some that I would want to just throw in too are, if you're looking to get into speaking engagements, having a book that you can send people so they have an idea of what you talk about, that's a
absolutely.
good way to do it. It can be used as a lead magnet, given to people for free that come to an event, or incentive for people to give you their emails. Um, so it becomes an amazing piece of content that we can really circulate around to use in so many different ways.
Yeah.
And when you can compound something, that's when you know you need to do it.
Yeah, totally. Bill, can I tell my quick story of how I leveraged my second book?
Of course.
Thank you. Thank you. So I was asked several years ago to do a speaking training 2 days at Stanford University, which was a big deal in my business, of course, right? And
Hmm.
I'm like, woohoo. And we signed the contract. And I said, okay, I'm going to bring autographed copies of my brand new book for everyone in the audience, for free to make it special, etc. Event planner said, oh my God, I love it. That's amazing. Thank you so much. I said, you're welcome. We hung up the phone and I went, holy crap, I need to write that book right now. Because I had 6.5 weeks from the promise to the event.
Yeah.
Right. So, for one reason I'm telling this story is because you can get your book done really freaking fast when you follow, a process and a timeline and, take the logistics and thinking out of it.
Yeah.
And number two, you can leverage it before it's done to make things happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Um, that's really cool. I would be stressed out of my mind though to tell you like 6 weeks
Oh,
to
yeah,
try to
yeah,
finish
yeah.
a book.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, that happened. We're just gonna push that aside there. That was my minor
yeah.
point of the whole thing.
No, 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 no doubt, no doubt. But what was funny too is I got a digital cover of that book created as I was frantically, writing
Hmm.
the book. I put it up on LinkedIn. I'm like, look, 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 I'm writing a new book. Look, look, look. Somebody else reached out and they're like, hey, we're creating a mindfulness and empathy video game with a Fortune 100 company and MIT. It's going to be played by 20,000 people. We saw your book. We want to talk to you about writing the curriculum. And I went, what? Of course I'll write the curriculum. What? And that was 10 months of consulting with a Fortune 100 company, thanks to my book before it was finished.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So absolutely.
Uh,
So we've talked about how to kind of get started on a book, how to really conceptualize what it would take to get that thing done. what we can do with that book after it's finished or not finished, as we were just learning, as you know, how we can market it, how we can move it forward. So I think that kind of like the last thing I want to kind of put into perspective for people is when it when it comes to writing a book, what are some expectations people should have going into this process?
Just about everything you think about, you know about books is wrong
Okay.
these days. Just about everything, right? Time is not an issue. Um, Self-publishing is a good idea,
Hmm.
right? For 99 times out of 100 for people like us, do not use a traditional publisher. You will sign your life and your intellectual property away, right? And there's all sorts of other reasons for that. Time is not an issue because you can dictate as part of the process. I'm not saying dictate every single thing, but dictate so you can be connected to your authentic voice and bring it forth on the pages instead of like, is this the right word? Screw that, right? Just speak it. You're an expert.
Yeah.
Speak it, right? And then, to think that it has to be like a painful and suffering process, and you know, it doesn't have to be painful and suffering if you're like following a method and a process. And if you've had conversations with people about the book you're writing, we come full circle, right? um, and the maybe the last part of this for the moment is that you know your book is so important, right? However many other books you think are like yours, nobody can write the book you write. Nobody can, nobody has had the life you've had. So even if there's other, like, a bunch of other accountants, nobody's had your life and your stories, right? And your transformation of mess and challenge to success and thriving, right? That's the stuff that's going to separate for you from everybody else, right? That's the stuff that's where you're going to make your gold, right? So stay
Hmm.
in that place, write your book because, as we talked about before, top of the pyramid, people will think you know something if you write the book.
Yeah.
So write the book, write it right, and leverage, the F out of it. And I like to say that, and everybody goes, and I say F is for fabulous.
Absolutely. Perfect. Um, yeah, so I mean, it's definitely still strong. It's still a option for people, and I think it's become, like you said, you writing it for specific people. I think the other part that has come into fruition to really make books push out even easier is that it's so easy to access any kind of person, any kind of vertical, any kind of market out there, so that no matter what you write your book on, you will find someone who will like that book. And it's just a matter of locating where they're at, which is, again, leads back to what you were talking about of making sure you know your customer really well.
Yep, yep, exactly, exactly. And I would say that because not every single book will work, right? You know, Chances are there's somebody for most books, but in Bill, exactly what you're saying about having the conversation, you know, make sure to understand that are people, spending money in the topic area of the book you want to write, right?
Hmm.
I mean, if you wanted to support your business,
Yeah.
right? Because if they're people who are not looking for, and this is why the conversations are so important, right? Because you might have, the right book, but the wrong angle on the book,
Hmm.
right? That kind of thing. So, make sure the book is connected to what problems and challenges are people trying to solve, and goals are they trying to achieve specifically right now. Even if you're an expert in your stuff and you've talked to all your people and done all the market research already, doesn't matter. Affirm it, clarify it, talk to your people right now, and get the language that they're using right now.
Absolutely. So, Ben, tell us how people can get a hold of you if they're interested about anything when it comes to books.
Yeah, thank you very much. So, really helpful free thing, right, is to get testimonials from your book. I have a fabulous template and tell you how to make it super easy for you. That's at bookreviews.cc. Once again, bookreviews.cc, right? And if you want to talk to Donna Kundi and me about podcast and or book and all of that kind of stuff, you can go to donnaandben.com. Once again, donnaandben.com. Excuse me. And yeah, and I'm at influencewiththeheart.com/chat if you just want to come hang out with me, and happy to, answer questions, help you get clear on anything, because, the your book is super important, and, working with the right person is super important, and most people don't know stuff, right? So come get clear with me, and if I can help you, great. If I can point to the best person, be my absolute pleasure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So thanks again, Ben. Thank you, everybody, for watching another great interview from our 2023 Business Connection Summit. We'll see everyone in the networking event tonight. I'm Bill Marshall, and we'll talk to you all next time. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.